What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the PT Coffee Cast, brought to you by The Movement. My name is Dalton, and alongside me today is my beautifully bearded friend, William. William, how are we doing today?
Doing good, man. We got a fresh haircut here, which I'm excited about, as always. And what I like is we got a couple of interesting mugs here today.
Yeah, you got your
A
heart.
little bit of a different style.
Is that hearts on there?
I think so, yeah. I don't
Mine?
know why. I like it.
I feel like a very distinguished gentleman with this mug today.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to be a little bit more proper today.
Totally.
A little more buttoned up, Should have wore my tie.
Oh, imagine that. Cheers.
ASMR. Hey, man, nice shirt.
Hey, this one?
That one.
Oh, nice shirt.
I know. Where'd you
Thank
get it?
I don't know. Just arrived here
Yeah, just showed up on your
Yeah.
doorstep. Yeah, mine too.
out of nowhere.
Yeah. We didn't plan this.
No. I don't even know,
This
what it's for.
this is probably very overwhelming for the viewer. Like, if you're seeing this yellow shirt and Will's yellow shirt, it's very bright.
Yeah, we're really making sure that we stand out.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to get yourself one of these shirts, you should consider the Movement Mentorship. But no, actually, like, the Movement Mentorship is underway. We're super pumped about it. Cohort 1 is rocking, and the conversations have been hype. I know when I asked you this question back before we launched, like, what was your favorite? What are you looking forward to most? I know, like, the coffee chats were the big highlight for us, and they've been unreal. Such good conversation, such good insight. I walk away from those calls with the cohort with, like, so much hype, but also, like, a lot of new knowledge for myself. So I knew that I was going to learn a ton, but I've been just, like, way more blown away by the knowledge that I'm personally taking away from everyone in the group.
We already have such a good supportive crew,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one thing that's really firing me about the potential of this mentorship. But even bigger than that, the community that we're making there. Everybody's on the same page. We're all striving for the same things in slightly different paths, and that is in itself awesome.
Yeah. So if you guys are looking to join cohort 2, you can join the waitlist in the show notes below. We're hopefully going to launch that in September after we wrap up the first cohort. So if you're interested, sign up for the waitlist. If you guys aren't subscribed to the podcast, make sure you subscribe on all podcast platforms. If you aren't subscribed to the YouTube channel, head over there, subscribe, so that you can see these beautiful yellow t-shirts that we're wearing in our beautiful faces. But yeah, that's all we got for the intro. Why don't we dive into the topic for today? Again, the awesome part about the mentorship is it gives us so many hype topics to talk about on this podcast. And I think this one was kind of pulled from a conversation that we had, as well as a clinical experience that just happened here at HQ. So I'll have you kind of lay the land, and I'll poke my head in like usual,
Well, it came from someone just mentioning, hey, I'm not sure if I provide enough value for my clients. And so that was the question that prompted us to think more. And this is something that we hear often, just people being maybe a little bit insecure about whether or not they provide enough value for their clients. And when it comes to how this affects your ability to work with people, we think where it'll really show up is when you need to nudge your client a little bit to continue working with you, especially in conventional model, which most people are doing, where your client runs out of insurance. And so now, in order to continue, they have to pay out of pocket. And that means that you need to show them that it's valuable enough, right? And so if you're insecure and unsure, then that's probably going to, go on to the client, and they're going to be unsure and maybe not continue.
Right. Which, with kind of the story we're going to share, it does a disservice to the client's potential of accomplishing the things that they can really accomplish by working with us as healthcare professionals. And I think like that idea of value, and then like, you know, crossing it over with insurance, it's like a messy thing. Like there's a lot to unpack with that, and we could probably go on for a long time. But, you know, I think what is hard when it comes to the insurance coverage and the way that we position ourselves sometimes is people come in with this expectation that it's free in a sense. You know, when they have this coverage, they're like, oh, I have X amount of healthcare coverage. Like I'm going to use this so that I don't have to pay, which is great. Like the fact that we have that option here in Canada is awesome. Like I think there is value to that, but it makes it harder from a clinician standpoint, because you have to dive deeper with that client and show them what the true value of what you're providing them is. And it's not the fact that it's just like, oh, I'm going to go to physio and use my healthcare coverage because it doesn't cost me anything. And so that really starts with a lot of the stuff we talk about on this podcast, where you need to, you know, find their why, you know, set their goals out, like have a process to show them that thing, like kind of the podcast that we just put out not too long ago about 4 keys to an effective plan, which you guys should check that episode out. But it starts a lot with that, so that you can lay the groundwork for being able to then communicate to the client why, hey, you know, your coverage is coming to an end, but there's a lot that we need to do to get you to your goals. And that's going to require you to invest some money of your own into that. And is the value of what we're working on together and what I'm providing you worth that for you? And that's a hard thing. That's a challenging thing.
There's obviously a lot of ways that you can show people, you know, some of the things that you just mentioned there, that you can show people like how much value they are going to get out of by continuing. But it starts with you knowing how much value you can provide. Like you have to believe that and realize that. Yeah,
we should circle back to that, obviously being the main point of like the clinician not feeling like maybe they have the value. I just kind of wanted to lay that out because I think it's there's a lot to it. But my question I guess for you would be, why do you think clinicians question the value?
I'm not sure exactly why, right? But I definitely think there's some major factors, like one just being how we kind of get taught in school. And some of the times it has to do with certain ways that they teach you that gives you the impression that you're just not there yet.
Right.
You know, like I'm not trying to call anybody out or, you know, shoot shots, but we all know this.
Yeah.
Right? We all know this. We know what this is.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big major contributor, and it's just not true.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that you have everything you need to provide a lot of value with the abilities and the knowledge that you have now.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of whether you just graduated or you've been out 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. And I think that, you know, a lot of it has to do with just, you know, it's coming out of school and you have so much information that you've just taken in, and you don't really know how to implement it. So you're questioning your abilities, and then like, you know, you're starting this whole new thing that you're going to mess up and you're not going to be great at first. So then you start questioning like, oh, can I do this? And then you start thinking like the client is like judging you or not thinking that you have the ability, when in reality, like that person's coming to you most of the time, like 99% of the time, the people that are coming to you don't know much, if not anything, about what's going on. And that's no disrespect to the client. That's why they're coming to you. That's why you have, you know, the value. And I think like once you start taking control of that and realizing like, hey, I have a lot to offer people, you know, it may not be the same as someone who's been practicing for 5 years, or it may not be my absolute like best that I feel like I want to show up, but you have a lot in the moment that you can do to really impact people as a new grad, as a younger clinician, as a 10-year clinician.
You can also lose the forest to the trees. I think that happens a lot, where when you're in school, you have to study for the test, which means you have to memorize every single thing that you need to do, when in reality, you're not going to do all those things. And so, what I mean by losing the forest to the trees is like, you need to understand the purpose of what you're doing. And very rarely does it involve needing to go through everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think like, to come back to the question, just so we can like move it forward, because you know how we can get on tangents, is I think like there comes a time where you're asking yourself this question that we have written on the board: should I push my client to move forward with me? And I think oftentimes people don't lean into that, and you need to lean into that. If you believe that the client is not where they are or where they told you they want to be, then you need to push them to get there, and oftentimes that's going to require them to go beyond what their insurance is is covering. And you as a clinician need to understand that value is worth it, but you have to learn how to or get better at communicating that value and presenting that value to the client, to make them feel confident in committing to that. And I think that is a big part of what we try to do with the mentorship, is like take those skills and work on those skills in order to have you get better outcomes with your clients. And how do you navigate that, and how do you lay that out so that it makes this conversation easier? And the reason why you need to improve on these skills is the example of the story that we have with a client here, who, if we didn't navigate that situation, that conversation, and push this client forward and have confidence in the value that we know we could provide them, she would have never reached the unreal accomplishments that she had. And maybe you can share a little bit more about like that client specifically.
Yeah. So we'll just, we'll call her Jane.
Jane.
Sound good?
Yeah. Jane Doe.
So, with Jane, when Jane came in, she had double knee replacement. And, without getting too into the details, the thing was she wasn't sure what her life was going to look like, and was not very optimistic about what she was going to be able to do, just functionally. And so, a little bit different in our situation, but she was conflicted in terms of, do I go here, where I really align with everything that they're saying, that they're going to be able to help me, but it's going to cost more, or I guess be a bigger investment, or do I go to like an OHIP clinic? And we obviously feel very strongly that we were able to, based on her goals, help her with us and nudged her to go forward. Fast forward to now, many months later, and she comes in and is just talking at the front about going to Vancouver Island on a trip and hiking like rigorously. And then not just that, but verbalizing all these things she now wants to do, like travel-wise, that she wasn't sure she was ever going to be able to do again. And then started running on the treadmill. And it's like, just think about what's happening there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All these possibilities are now open because of that initial visit or process that nudged her to continue with us. And think about the alternative, where maybe that doesn't happen and that outcome's completely different. That is like an incredibly valuable outcome. Nothing magic was done in that rehab process. It's the same as probably a lot of people would do, right? The difference is continuing and seeing it through, right?
Yeah, and providing an opportunity for a client like that to thrive. And I know there's a lot there, because that initial decision-making point for her when she's trying to decide whether or not she wants to come here, which is definitely going to be a bigger investment for her in comparison to going to another clinic, which it from an investment, a financial standpoint, would be, an easier choice for her. We have developed the skills to navigate that conversation to help that client realize why they need to invest in their health. And I give a lot of credit to both the clinician that was in that position as well as the client for coming to for the clinician to lean into that, knowing what the potential outcome for this client could be taking the other direction. And the reason why I'm assuming that this clinician pushed that person so hard was because they could tell what that client wanted to get to and knew the work that would need to be done to get there. And in their mind, they didn't think that she would be able to get there taking the other option. And so being able to have the confidence and being able to lean into that uncomfortable conversation, because I know it wasn't probably comfortable to have, to push that client to realize this is the investment they need to make. That is something that you can work on and you can build your skills in to be able to help that client realize what they need, versus like choosing the other option, which would have been a little bit of an easier option for her. But that's the job of us as a clinician. It would be a disservice if we didn't challenge that client to think about committing to us, and then for the client to trust that this was going to be what she needed. And there is a little bit of uncertainty always with these things, but for her to be open and trusting and making the right decision for herself, like that takes a lot on both parties. So I think that's really cool. And then the other thing that I think about is there's a lot of times where we as individuals, when we're thinking about purchasing a service, we're always questioning, like, is this going to be worth it? Am I going to get the outcome that I want? And that is always going to be uncertain. After this client has gone through what she did, which wasn't easy, it was a long, rigorous process, and she stayed committed to it throughout, which is not easy to do, and is like super kudos to her. When she finally was able to go on this trip that she just went on, and she hiked, and she just got on this treadmill in here the other day and ran for the first time, I guarantee you, if you said, hey, how much would you be willing to pay for this moment, this experience that you're getting right now, there wouldn't be a number that you could put on that for that client. And that is what we need to try to do. We need to try and really provide so much value and have the client realize that, hey, if you can overcome this and commit to this and do the thing, you're not going to think about the investment that you made for this, because there's no number you're going to be able to put on that. And it's our job, I think, as clinicians, to learn how to have people see that, and then obviously have the abilities to take them there, which most, if not a high percentage of the clinicians, have the skills and the abilities to take a client who has a knee replacement through the full spectrum of rehab and get them back to running. You have that. Most clinicians will have that or develop to do that. The other aspects are what we need to cultivate to really show people the true value that we have to offer.
Put yourself in that person's shoes. If you were there maybe at the 3-month mark, you ran out of insurance, you could squat, you get up and down, you could do most of the normal things around your day-to-day, but you can't run, you can't really hike intensely, you can't do much athletic, right? And you were faced with the decision, do I pay another $750 to $1,000 to get to running, being athletic, hiking, where I can travel and I can pursue new experiences, would you want the clinician to nudge you in that direction?
Yeah. And you would
Would
right?
think so.
Yeah, but as clinicians, what you have to realize is like that they're not seeing that, and it's on us to really lay that out for them. And ultimately, they're going to make the choice. But if you don't have that uncomfortable conversation, you don't lay that out for them, you don't do your absolute best to learn all the skills possible to highlight those value pieces along the journey, you're doing a disservice to that client. Because a lot of times what happens is, and again, we're not like, we make these mistakes and have made these mistakes, but a lot of times what happens is we don't lean into it. We don't push the client. We're not willing to have that tough conversation. And that client's just like, yeah, I'm cool with getting up and down from the floor and that's it. When probably that's not actually the case. They just really need us to lean in and help them more.
First step, understand the value that you can have.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first step.
Yeah. And I think you do have a lot of value. Like, and not, I think, I know you do, because we see it with all the clinicians that we've had here. I've seen it with all the people that I've worked with in the past. We see it with people that we talk to on Instagram. We see it with the people in the mentorship. Like, you have that value. And we need to lean into that. Anything else? Okay. Hey, nice shirt, man.
You too.
Guys, thanks for tuning into this episode. Let us know what you think on this. Have you been in this position? Do you think about this? Again, are we completely off? We always love to get feedback from you guys. So let us know if you have any thoughts. If you aren't subscribed to the podcast, make sure you subscribe on all podcast platforms. If you aren't subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure you head over there. You can see our pretty faces. If you are interested in the mentorship, we will have our second cohort going out in the fall, so you can sign up in the show notes below to join the wait list for that cohort. And yeah, I think that's it. As always, guys, stay caffeinated. Peace.